Hello and welcome back to the God the Artist podcast. I'm your host, Morgan McCarver, and today we have special guest, Aaron Ryan. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Aaron.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, you are quite a prolific author. How did you get into writing?
Well, so I would say that it was by accident, except it wasn't really by accident. It was more like assignment. So Mrs. Walker, hi Mrs. Walker, I'm sure she's deceased by now. God rest her soul. In second grade, gave us all an assignment to write a novella, and I don't remember exactly, how it went, but it was pretty much a copyright infringement ripoff of Alan Dean Foster's novelization of E.T. at the time, which I was reading. So I wrote a little book called, The Electric Boy with construction paper surround and college rule, three-hole punch paper and crude stick figure drawings. Really borrowed heavily from his novel, and it turned into the first thing I ever wrote. I just remember holding it in my hands when I was done, turning it around and showing people the cover and going, "Holy cow, I wrote this!" It was a light bulb epiphany moment of like, wow. And so I was like, I could do this. And then I was in a young authors club at 10 years old, which I completely forgot about. Mom gave me a newspaper clipping and went, the memories come flooding back. It's crazy. Oh.
So you started at a young age. You knew you were going to be a writer. Did that follow you through high school and to your college path? And
Yeah, I'm going to go, no. I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's kind of both and. I really pursued a lot of different creative avenues, and I think I was a little bit indecisive. You're generally, maybe a little indecisive at a younger age. What do you want to do when you grow up? That type of question. But I was, man, I was into dance. Not anymore. I don't have the figure. But I was into dance. I was into singing and stage performing, writing, drama, poetry, and that trend just continued through my whole life. I was doing, creative productions with video, and as a voiceover artist, I'm currently a voice actor, and I can tell people stories creatively that way. Um, I think my life just kind of zigzagged between a lot of creative pursuits. When I finally zeroed in on I'm supposed to be an author, it was like lock and load, no turning back.
so And the voice acting, I love to listen to audiobooks, and I've always wondered, like, do you have certain voices that you naturally just go to for certain characters, or do you have to kind of plan it out ahead of time, or do you need props so you get into character?
Uh, so I don't actually have a wardrobe. That would be funny. Like now I'm Joe Bassett. Um, no, I think I love doing voices. I've always had an ear for voices and accents and stuff. Personally, I hate doing audiobooks. They take way too long and they pay way too little. They always have. My bread and butter as a voice actor is more commercial and e-learning. Like I do a lot of that. But man, when it came down to it, there's only really one client I like to narrate audiobooks for, and he's kind of a self-help French Tony Robbins. But when it came down to my own audiobooks, I felt really territorial. Like if I hire somebody and they did a really bad job or didn't bring the narrative or the characters to life, I would feel so remiss. So as much as I hate doing them, I owed it to myself to, do them myself. No one really knows how to bring a story to life or the characters to life like the author who wrote that story. So it was a chance for me to use a lot of the accents that I had. I don't get into wardrobe or character, just kind of roll through it, and I kind of have a preconceived notion of how they're supposed to sound, before I get into the studio, I guess.
And being able to really make it your own, since it's your whole process all the way through. What's
Yeah.
your favorite genre to explore writing about?
Well, one of the things that, like, I wouldn't have children's books if I didn't have children. I've got a 10 and a 6-year-old. When they were, I think, 8 and 4, I don't think Asher was 5 yet. I wrote some children's books for them. And that was really, a cool privilege. But I'm first and foremost a fiction author. I love post-apocalyptic sci-fi, first of all, I should say. I love post-apocalyptic and dystopian environments. I love when hope is just hanging by a thread, and it's the last thing that we'll give up. It is the uttermost last thing that we'll renounce. It is the one thing that is stronger than fear, as President Snow said in the Hunger Games. So I love those dystopian odds are stacked against you environments. But man, I've loved writing different thrillers. I wrote a historical fiction thriller. I've written literary criticism, business guides, poetry. Uh, yeah, it just and big sagas too. I love writing them all. You get a and a lot of nonfiction books too. You get a harebrained idea for this one, you follow it, and then oh, here's another one, and it's kind of like Doug in Up, squirrel. You just follow them as best as you can and write a good book from it.
How many books do you have at this point? How many have you written?
I'm working on number 45 as we speak. So yeah,
Congratulations. That's
yeah,
great.
thank you. Thank you.
So how do you choose to publish, or do you have opinions on self-publishing versus traditional publishing?
Yeah, self-publishing doesn't work for everyone. I am an entrepreneur and a freelancer. I always have been. So I think it takes a little bit of kind of a rogue or a renegade personality to be a self-pubbed author. Granted, it's kind of a gold mine per se when you get a trad pub. If you can get one, you go through querytracker.com or .net, I believe it is, and you're pitching to agents, literary agents, and publishers. You have to be prepared and have really thick skin because you're going to receive a lot of rejection. They are very, very selective as far as what they take. And for me, I think the biggest thing that was a detractor of going with a trad pub, I did try, to go with a few of them, but I think the biggest detractor is they take so long to get your book to market, and I don't like that. I'm very impatient. Number one, the confessional time. I my love language is giving. I love to put the book out there and give it, to the marketplace and have people, get into it and enjoy it. And so I can do that a lot quicker as a self-pubbed author. There's other pros as well, commanding higher royalties and retaining all creative control and retaining all your rights and choosing your own branding and editing and marketing teams and all that. There's a lot of pluses over traditional publishing, but it does come with marketing. You need to market and you need to be able to do that. Not everyone's favorite thing, but it works for me. I found my groove in self-publishing.
Who's out there, what's your best way to market yourself?
Well, I mean, I wear stuff like this. I just had these shirts made. If this is for those of you who are joining us only audio, I have a lot of T-shirts made that are basically just screaming the fact that I'm an author because I want people to know. The one that I'm wearing right now says, in big bold letters, "famous author" on the front. But if you read the little lettering, above it, it's basically disclaimers. I often dream about maybe one day possibly kind of becoming famous, but for now, I'll settle for obscure author. So people see famous author, but when you really get close, you find the nitty-gritty picture of it. I've got vinyl lettering on my car. Support a best-selling author. I do vendor markets a lot where I'm out there amongst other artisans selling books. Not book fairs. I don't like doing book fairs because I'm not unique really in the slightest there. Um, Meetups, joining local networking groups. It's all of this stuff is just kind of thinking outside the box and treating it like a business. If you do that, you have a vehicle to take your craft somewhere, I believe.
That t-shirt is very clever, I will say. It's
Thank
very
you. I love it.
so
You're in a store and they come up and they go, "Oh, are you an author?" And then you get to go, "Well, yes, I am," and you get to have a great conversation with them. I love that.
and do you just always have a stash of books with you somewhere so you can just pull them out? Or you've got so many books, how would you even manage? Do you sell electronically as well as like an ebook?
Yeah, that's usually where you start. If you're a self-pubbed author, that's the first thing that you're going to publish. No, a stack of books would be, I'd need a forklift with the number that I have. And no one told me books are heavy. So like, I glossed over that little, tidbit. When I do vendor markets, it blows me away the amount of stuff that you need to bring as backdrop and banner and table and everything like that. That's all light. That stuff's light. But boy, when you start writing a lot of books, and you want to carry enough of them in paperback and hardcover. And then for the box sets, you've got paperback box sets, all six books in this one. And then there's an all-in-one, all six books hardcover version and all six books paperback version. It's just, you feel like, one size doesn't fit all. So it gets very heavy. But I have business cards too. And flyers. You hand those out and then people are either going to go to your website or go to Amazon, whatever's most convenient for them.
Yeah, and books are heavy. I'm the same way with pottery. Like, one mug isn't that bad, but a box of about 20 mugs, you're like,
Yeah,
think that through.
that's
Um,
crazy.
yep. You wrote a series, I believe, in the Christian world. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I wrote Dissonance, an Alien Invasion saga. It was six books, and I was very convicted about the fact that I really wanted to have verisimilitude in it. So what I mean by that is you want it to just feel absolutely real. And the real world isn't perfect. There is profanity. I will never incorporate an F-bomb, taking the Lord's name in vain, graphic sex, drugs, bullying, violence. Nobody needs that. I don't need that, and my readers don't need that. But if a Gorgon, that's the aliens in Dissonance, if they're going to attack you and come eat you, you might not say, "Oh shucks," you might say something else. So I use it incredibly sparingly and only for maximum effect when in situations of huge duress. But I was very convicted by that. I was just like, ugh, and it's such a it feels like such a conflict, a warring within. So it necessitated an afterword in Dissonance Volume 1 Reality, which I've kept up in every book. Um, so when I was done with Dissonance, I really felt called by the Lord. Like I've never felt called to write anything other than the end and You Are My Whole Earth, a daddy's love for his sons, and God is Not Santa, those three. But the end, I really felt called to write clean Christian fiction and along the lines of, I was very inspired by the Left Behind series of the 90s. I'd read almost all of them, and I wanted to write something clean along those lines. So it was the first series or book that I ever really felt like the Lord actually calling me to write. And it turned out so good, Morgan. It's loaded with scripture, with redemption, with heart. You will cry. I don't care how thick your skin is. You'll cry.
Is that a fictional book or is like where are we kind of fitting in with that one?
Yeah, the end is a trilogy. It's basically a dystopian nightmare set in 2113 where a madman literally believes he is the Antichrist of Revelation. And so, under the guise of a census, he has Christians secretly branded by laser scan on the backs of their necks. It's impossible to extinguish. It's lit up by our body heat. It only dies when we do. He has all the power, charisma, looks, resources, everything. And he has an army of mechanoid robots called Guardians. They're really only trained to guard him. And they are dispatched to hunt for one thing, and that is the symbol on the backs of our necks. So it's essentially a second Holocaust, this time of Christians, in a very dystopian setting in 2113. But it's told from the vantage point of three protagonists, all leading up to a massive uh, um, confrontation to depose him. His name is Emperor Nero. He named himself that after, the despot in the early, like AD 70 or whatever it was. That was a mouthful. Sorry.
It's fascinating. You froze for a second there, so I was like, oh, are we? But I think we're
Oh,
good.
okay.
Um, on the connection side. But yeah, wow, I definitely want to read that trilogy. That doesn't seem too far-fetched from what actually could happen. That seems like, oh, okay. Yeah, that seems reality, not
Yeah.
not so fictional. Um, and I think that is going to be more of a real fear. Like the older the world gets, it seems like Christians are kind of being persecuted in that way. So it'll be interesting to see how prophetic your book is, I think, down the line
Yeah.
as well. Tell
It's
us
not
about,
far-fetched at all. It's a pretty frightening scenario to consider.
yeah, for sure. When you were writing it, did the characters come easily to you, or did you like have to figure out who they reminded you of?
Um, to know, see, I'm a pantser by trade, and so there's two different styles of writing. For those who don't know, there's a planner or a plotter, and they like to, map everything out with index cards and flow charts and bullet points and things like that, where everything is completely structured. I don't work like that. I'm much more of a fly by the seat of my pants. So the other style is a pantser writer. Very organic, very fly by the seat of your pants, very trial and error. And you can paint yourself into a corner, and you're going to have to control Z your way out of there. That's the risk of being a pantser. But the story and the characters, I think, really came very organically in this saga. It's something that resonates deeply within me as a Christian, as a believer, that this scenario is possible. Um, it resonates with me that this totalitarian despot could rise up and completely oppress, a sect like us. So it wasn't too far-fetched to think that, these people could be living something that we might be living out someday. So it was very real to me.
It's been out. How are they being received?
Well, they're very well actually, especially the audiobooks, which really surprises me.
Mhm.
Because again, I don't like doing audiobooks, but the audiobooks turned out well. I published all of them in 2025. So the first one I believe was in March 2025. The next one was June or something like that, and then the finale was in the fall. The finale is huge. I mean, it is the stakes are absolutely raised to an exponential degree, and it is a colossal unmasking and conflict that happens at the end. I'm just so proud of how it turned out. So it's amazing when I write something that I want to write because I like it, and then I write something that I'm called to write, and the differences have been astounding in terms of response.
How long does it take you to write a book like that?
Uh, well, I like to say that I'm propelled by urgency. As a voice actor, the industry is really being eroded under the weight of AI. It's the usual suspects have always harmed and eaten away at the bottom line of voiceovers, lowballing clients, underbidding colleagues, the economy. But then in 23, we had the SAG after a strike, and we had the advent of AI. It wasn't really the advent, but the foray into the open market of AI. And so we've seen our income erode. We've seen the industry really take a hit. And so I pivoted back to fiction authoring as a result. So I try to write fast. I do let the editor take it slow, but I tend to write fast. Part of that is just I'm hugely impatient. Confessional time. Um, I'm hugely impatient and I want to put them out there. So it's hard for me to hold them back for a really long time when I know that it's good and I know people will want to read it.
And did you know that all three books were going to be done in less than a year?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because I wouldn't be able to wait that long,
Yeah,
for for anything longer than that.
I don't blame you. Are you able
Mm.
to work on more than one book at once, or is it kind of like one at a time?
It's really one at a time. I can't multitask. I can multitask, but not to that effect. However, or I should say, that being said, as a writer right now, I'm writing my first horror novel, and that is, it's different characters, it's a different premise, it's a different time, and so I'm writing that while simultaneously reading through my own completed Talisman all-in-one hardcover version. I'm enjoying the whole story as a whole altogether. And so I have to pull myself out of that and put it in here, pull myself out of here and put it in that. And that gear shifting is a little hard, but man, real-time gear shifting writing between two different projects is nigh on impossible for me. When I encounter writer's block, usually with fiction, what I'll do is I'll take an off ramp from the fiction highway and I'll write something closer to home that's nonfiction, like about my wife or my sons. And that will get the juices flowing again. It'll get the wheels turning, and then I can see that my fingers still work, you know. Um, and then when that's done, then I'll resume the difficult project.
That's a great idea to write what's real, and then that kind of frees up your brain a little bit for a second to
Yeah.
think of more fun, imaginary type things. How does your
Yeah.
family feel about being written about?
Ah, well, my boys don't really know. I mean, they know the book is there. It's called "You Are My Whole Earth: A Daddy's Love for His Sons," and that's a nonfiction book. I think that they enjoy it, but I love using the names of people who are close to me in all of my novels. So not virtually, in all of my big sagas, there's a Brennan, and there's in the Talisman, there's a Janine. That's my wife. And so, and I love that they're in there, and they're always heroic characters. They're always strong and admirable, and this and that. Uh, I think art imitates life, and the line between fiction and reality is really blurred, and I really like that. I like being able to incorporate what I know into what people are about to know.
Feel like you have made it as an author, and if so, when did you kind of have that initial feeling?
Well, this shirt says right here, obscure author. So here you go, obscure. You know, the guy I mentioned earlier, as far as audiobooks that I narrate for, his name is Thibaut Meurice. He's French, and Thibaut, I think it was Jim Rohn, an author that he quoted, who said, "Success is not a destination; it is a journey." And I love that. I believe in that 100,000 million%. I feel successful as an author? Yes. Do I feel like I've arrived as an author? Not really. I think that it's a constant journey of evolution, and I'm really waiting for some very key things to happen. I've had six books now adapted for the screen, and one of them Dissonance is being pitched to streaming networks actively right now. The others are entered into film festivals and doing pretty well. Uh, Getting into film festivals and winning awards. I would love every indie author's dream is to see their book on film and to reach a wider audience. And I think that is probably where I would really feel like, man, I've arrived. um, or when, the book is selling upwards of, 50 copies a day or 30 copies a day or something like that. So one day.
One day, yeah. I think you have provided the best answer so far to that question. Everybody says something different, there's a certain goal they have to reach. But we're all growing. That's part of what art is, right? We're always changing and growing. And oh, well, that piece I did last year is actually terrible now because I did such a better piece this year. And all
Yeah, totally.
So tell us a little bit about your adaptation for the screen. I know people always say like, oh, well, the book's so much better than the movie. So how do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I was approached by a gentleman he'd like to remain anonymous because every time I mention him, people swamp him, they swarm him, and they're like, hey, my book is great, and he's like, not every book deserves to be on screen, and with all due respect. So, um, but he approached me, his assistant approached me in 2024, and I was naturally skeptical because some people are a natural blonde, I'm a natural cynic. And in the authoring realm, we are beset by and plagued by scammers all day long. I get 30 of them every single day, upwards of 30 emails every single day, offering some shenanigans. And it's so frustrating. It's like I would love to get one email from one person who is genuinely interested in my book a week, as opposed to these 30 a day. That would bring balance. But he approached me. I checked him out. I vetted him. It's his livelihood, so he does charge, and he charges what, it was within the range of what I found a screenplay adaptation to be. But he also pitches to Hollywood producers. I don't have the foggiest clue who I would pitch to, so he's tackling that as well. And he was very true to the book. He did make two changes. We're talking about Dissonance Volume 1 Reality, by the way, my Alien Invasion opener. he made two changes that I didn't agree with. Um, I was like, oh, just can you, ooh, and thankfully he control Z'd his way out of there and undid them. So he was very collaborative, and I feel it really represents the book, and I would love to see it on screen, man. It'd be so awesome.
And I really like that relationship and that respect that you're able to really keep the book true or the movie true to the book too.
Yeah, that's imperative. As an author, I wrote it that way for a very specific reason, you know. Even
Hmm.
as a pantser, I wrote it that way because that's the way intuitively I wanted it to be presented. So I would expect that the movie would be presented similarly as well. Thankfully, he was really collaborative that way.
Great. As a voice actor, would you want to be in the movie as well?
I don't like really being on screen. If they needed a voice like some guy on the radio, I could do that. I mean, hey, if they said, "Hey, we'd like you to do a cameo in the movie," I probably wouldn't say no. It would have to be some guy off in the distance and wearing a Wookiee costume, or something like that. But I'm just not really comfortable in front of people unless I'm speaking. That's okay. But yeah, acting. I'm a voice actor for very specific reasons, so people don't have to watch me.
Yeah, yeah, that whole watching yourself or listening to yourself back, I'm still not used to that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I didn't think I sounded like that, but I guess I do.
Yeah, you always sound different. I don't know what it is. When you play tapes back, you're like, is that what I sound like? It's weird.
Yeah, 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 that's funny. So tell us a little bit about God is Not Santa. That title is just such an attention grabber.
Yeah, so as a Bible believing Christian, I want to have a devotional every single day. I want to come into the office, and before I get swept downstream and carried away by the current of the day and just getting lost in business and things to do, I want to have a devotional. So you can't see it, but right back there is my Bible and my devotional, and I will do that. But I'll also have a time of prayer. And man, for a while there, my prayer life was really growing very stagnant and very formulaic, very reciprocal. God, I'd like this and this and this, and if you could do this and kindly do this, and oh, if you could add this and make sure you do this as well, Lord. And Lord, I don't know if you know, but maybe you could also, and of course He knows. Um, it was really presumptive on my part uh, to let my prayer life become, what it had become. It wasn't really prayer. It was a list of demands. And so that didn't sit well with me. I really needed to change things up. So I wrote God is Not Santa, doing away with the wish list. There's an app that I use on my phone. I'll still use it, but it is to keep track of your prayer requests so you know what to pray, but also so you don't forget what to pray, I guess, but also to keep track of prayers that have been answered. Nothing wrong with that. That's noble, and I think serves a good purpose. But I got stuck in ticking all those boxes. I prayed this. I prayed this. I prayed this. And prayer should be alive. Prayer should be, the Word of God is living and active, sharper than any double-edged sword, able to pierce to the dividing of thoughts or joints and marrow, thoughts and spirit, and something like that. That's the way our prayer should be, is living and active and spontaneous, echoing back to the Creator what our spirits are feeling. And so, not this and this and this and this. Thanks God, amen. So it was more like a referendum to me to change my ways, and I hope that it blesses others as well.
So it's a devotion book. So every day you're reading a couple of pages. Is that kind of the idea?
It's not a devotional. It's basically just a nonfiction book about insight into a better prayer life. So it's not like a 365-day devotional. It's just lessons learned on the importance of very natural, connective, faith-based, uh, um, believing prayer and listening. I'm talking about listening in there rather than blah 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 blah. Lord, like we have two ears and one mouth for a reason, right? So listening in prayer and just being silent before the Lord. Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. That was really important for me to observe.
tips that you mention in your book. You don't have to give away all of the secrets.
In
But
God is Not Santa?
yes, yes. Like, what are other tips for praying a living prayer?
Yeah, one thing is finding somewhere absolutely quiet. As a voice actor, I've got a soundproof studio right behind me. You can't see it right now, but it's gorgeous, it's quiet, it's secluded. The sound just goes to die in there. Um, so, leave behind the electronics, leave behind the things that will distract you. Leave your phone. Um, I have a Mac, an iMac up on the wall. It's a wall-mounted iMac, and I read my scripts from it for voiceovers. It's on the screensaver, like the animals screensaver, that is just, it's beautiful. You see God's creation swimming through the water, peaceful, serene, and it just reminds me, um, uh, they don't sow, they don't reap, but our Heavenly Father feeds them. And it's just that they're going to get taken care of. Are you not worth more than them? So finding a quiet place, being diligent about it, carving out that niche every day in your schedule so that that becomes formulaic for you, so that your routine deliberately, intentionally necessitates this time with the Lord every morning before everything else carries you away. I think that's so important.
Hard to make that time, and once you get out of the habit, it's hard to get back in.
Yeah. Yeah. Very easy to get swept downstream.
Yep. Well, thank you. That is some great advice. And you had mentioned you had written a book. Oh, I can't remember the full title, but about a father's love for his children. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that one as well?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see the full background behind me, but it's over here. It's You Are My Whole Earth, a Daddy's Love for His Sons. And it was just I hadn't planned on it. It was very pantser, originating, but I was having such a hard time writing Talisman Nexus, just writer's block galore. And so I took a break, and that's a phrase that I had used on them. I was like, huh, I should write a book on that. You Are My Whole Earth. And gosh, those nonfiction books about, especially about being a daddy, those come so natural, because I'm speaking from experience. I'm speaking about something I'm so passionate about with my boys. And so it's a lot of observations on why anyone can be a father biologically if they are male, but not just anyone can be a dad. And the emphasis is on kids don't need fathers, which of course we know they do, but kids don't need fathers. What they need is dads. Dads who will get down on their level, who will show them they're so important. When my kids come into my office, I don't like, just a minute. It's nothing like that. It's, what's up, buddy? Come here, and, big hug. And showing them that they are valuable, that they're worth me taking a break. And lessons learned from my own dad with me. Just, it's so important to connect. You don't, they're not going to be 10 and 6 forever. And it's my time now to sow into them. So, yeah,
Great insight that you're able to recognize that in the moment too. I think so many people look back and realize, oh, I should have done whatever it is differently. But that
yeah,
you're able to aid other people as well, other dads, in that journey. That must be really rewarding to see that in your in your book experience as well.
yeah. It was a great book. I love the cover. I was mesmerized by the cover. Again, I don't know if we mentioned this in this one. I did another interview this morning, but I tend to work backwards. I'm a little bit of an anomaly. I design the cover of the book first. And that is because I'll get the idea for a book, and if I design an alluring enough cover, I want to write a narrative that's equally as alluring to match that cover. And that's also something very motivating to keep front and center so I can know this is my book and I'm working towards it, closer and closer every day. So I love the cover of You Are My Whole Earth, and that motivated me to write a good, compelling fiction book towards it.
Yeah, we didn't talk about your book design. I didn't realize you also were I guess, graphic artist in that way.
Yeah, gosh, that's really, it's an art, and it's not for everyone. If you can do it, it doesn't mean that you should. right? Um, Graphic designers are there, and they are graphic designers. That's what they do. You're an author. So if you are trying to do it and you think it looks good, you're really going to want to run it past a lot of people before you go to market with it, because your book needs, people still do judge a book by its cover. Your book needs to communicate what your front cover needs to communicate what your book is about, or people will walk right by on Amazon and everywhere else. So I like what I've designed. I do run them past people, and I get some, ideas what to run with. And I do design the cover first, but it will go through iterations before it's finalized and the book's ready to go. It evolves like I do.
Is there a certain color that has caught more people's attention? Have you been able to kind of track like which covers are most successful?
It's weird. No, not really. I think what's the saga or the books that are doing the best right now are the end books, and Dissonance still, because it's a huge story. It's 6 books long. And the end just resonates with so many people of a believer. It resonates with so many believers. But I don't have metrics, on like, well, gold is going to reach it better or blue is going to. I just try to design something that's beautiful and not have them all look the same.
Yeah.
It's really, people can fall into that trap unless it's part of a saga. It's all part of the same series. You do want uniformity in your covers, but yeah, I just have fun designing them. I love doing that.
Do you give like little Easter eggs in the cover, like, oh, if you read this very specific part of this book kind of thing, or
Not in the cover, although I've developed what I am calling the Aaron verse.
oh,
So I do have a woman whose name is Pastor Rosalita Campion, and she makes an appearance at the end of Dissonance Volume One Reality. She's a pastor, and so she is a prominent character in that series. She also appears in Forecast, The Phoenix Experiment, and The Slide, and now Blood Echoes is what my current work in progress. She's also mentioned in the End saga, and so and in the Talisman saga as well. So they're very tied together, all of the fiction novels, and I like that it all comes from something that is. In fact, someone just messaged me today on my Facebook page about it. It's like, did I read that right in the end that you're referring to Gorgons? Because the Gorgons are in dissonance. I said, you're absolutely right. Yeah. So they are tied together.
plans for like a smash up of all the book series combined?
Oh my gosh, that'd be hard. No, I don't think so. Although one of the things that I really had to find a way to do, I wanted to do this at the end of Talisman Halcyon, which is the finale in the Talisman series. I did want a way to undo all of the calamities and tragedies that had taken place in the other books, specifically the Slide and the Phoenix Experiment and the End, and of course Dissonance. So it's I won't spoil it, but wow, it turned out so good, and I love when people catch like, oh my gosh, he just undid his entire book, with this book.
Yeah.
He so it doesn't render it moot. It's still a compelling story, but you know that if you follow them in the chronological order that they were written, you can see where I'm going with it, and undoing and kind of pressing the reset button. It feels very much like a Avengers MCU.
Yeah. Yeah. I was about to say, this sounds very Marvel kind of multiverse type situation, and I love things like that. It's so much fun to like see a character again who you thought you'd never see again.
Yeah, well, Rosie just keeps popping up in all the books. In fact, in Blood Echoes, my current work in progress, I've got Dr. Penelope Eggers from Forecast. She's a counselor, and Rosie Campion. They're working together in Blood Echoes. So Dr. Eggers is in Forecast, Rosie's in everything else, and now I've paired them together in this book, which I hadn't planned on doing, but it's like it just seems so natural. But I love the fact that they're tied together, and I love when you're reading and you can go, "Oh, I loved this person from this other book." Their name pops up, and you're like, "I remember you." It's really cool.
That is awesome. And you've got so many different series going. I'm sure you can do that with as many characters as you choose or not to.
Yeah, freedom.
That's so cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It has been just so fascinating talking to you and learning all about the fictional worlds that you're creating, and I can't wait to read some of these books. They sound super fascinating. I'm definitely going to get some audiobooks for my commute. But if you would love to share a last final thought or any kind of advice, I'd love to hear that, and I'm sure the listeners would as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the questions I'm always asked at the end of an interview is, what would I tell an aspiring author or an existing author or a veteran author? And I don't know. No, I'm kidding. I really like to say, of course, you have to be yourself. You have a very unique voice. No one needs you to be the next Tolkien, Clancy, Grisham, Collins, Asimov, S.A. Corey. You're you, write you. Write with your own signature styles, and don't, you can tip of the hat, sure, paying homage to them, but be you. The other thing is, as an author, I was given a quote many years ago by a voiceover entrepreneur slash former casting agent. And she said, someone's endorsement of you, or lack thereof, has very little to do with your trajectory. And I had to ask her to repeat that because it caught me. I was like, what was that again? Say that again. Someone's endorsement of you, or lack thereof, has very little to do with your trajectory. So as an author, fill it in with whatever you are, a poet, an actor, a singer, whatever, someone's endorsement of you. So an athlete, whether you're winning awards, whether your book is selling, whether you're getting positive reviews, whether you're getting asked to speak, or not, whatever. If those things happen, great. If they're not happening, that doesn't mean that they won't, and it doesn't mean that you are not supposed to be going this direction. Your trajectory is forward. My trajectory as an author is forward, regardless of a negative review, not being asked to speak, no one buying the books, whatever. So just nose to the grindstone, develop that structural integrity and fortitude to keep going on despite not getting any accolades for it. This is a very worthy pursuit, but it is a slow grind and a slog, and you have to be willing to endure that.
Well said. Thank you so much, Aaron, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again when your next books come out.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. You can visit me at authoraaronryan.com if you'd like. I answer every email, and emails from readers are so much more delightful than emails from scammers. So just FYI.
There you have it, folks. I'll put that link in the show notes as well.
Cool.
All right,
Thanks
until
again.
next time.